A little while back, I posted a video talking about peptides, and the comment section absolutely blew up. It proves something to me that I think we all feel right now. The second I mentioned that these compounds are not FDA approved, a ton of you said, nope, I'm out, not touching them. But just as many of you said the exact opposite, that the FDA itself is the problem and not being approved is almost a badge of honor. And that really gets to the heart of the huge debate happening right now. Public trust in our institutions is at an all-time low. And for a lot of people, the FDA is public enemy number one, especially after the pandemic. These aren't just fringe ideas anymore. It's a genuine questioning of the agency's entire role. So it begs the real question, is the FDA a fundamentally broken institution? Is it time to do what some people are calling for and just abolish it completely? Today, we're going to tackle that head on. We'll look at the FDA's real catastrophic failures, but then we're going to look at what the world was actually like before we had a regulator, and we'll ask what really would happen if it disappeared tomorrow. First of all, let's be clear, that distrust in the FDA isn't coming from nowhere. The FDA has had some massively undeniable failures. Let's start with the opioid crisis. The FDA approved OxyContin with an exceptionally broad label that allowed it to be marketed for a wide range of common chronic pain conditions. And worse, that original label included the since proven false claim that it was actually less likely to be abused. That regulatory decision has fueled a public health catastrophe. And then there's the big one for many people, the agency's response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the use of the emergency use authorization and the unprecedented speed of the vaccine rollout, which made a lot of people worry that the process was rushed and normal safety checks were compromised. This is the ultimate example of the FDA's fundamental dilemma. It's perpetually caught between two types of errors, approving a harmful drug or delaying a helpful one. The harm from a bad approval is loud and visible, while the victims of a delayed approval are silent and invisible. During the pandemic, the pressure to act was fast and immense, and the agency's handling of that pressure shattered a lot of people's trust. So yes, the failures are real and the criticism is valid. But here's the critical question that we have to answer. Are these failures a reason to abolish the FDA, or are they an argument for reform? To figure that out, we have to look at what happens when there's no regulator at all. So what does a world with no regulator look like? Well, we don't have to guess, we have history. Before 1938, there was no law requiring a drug to be tested for safety before it was sold. So in 1937, when a company wanted to sell a liquid version of a popular sulfa drug for children, they just went ahead and made one. Their chemists mixed the drug with a solvent called diethylene glycol, added raspberry flavoring, and shipped this product labeled elixir sulfonamide all over the country. No safety tests were done because none were legally required. The problem? Well, diethylene glycol is a chemical nearly identical to antifreeze. It's a deadly poison. The elixir killed 107 people, mostly children, from agonizing kidney failure. When the government tried to get this poison off the shelves, the only legal charge they had was to technically label it as misbranding because it wasn't a true quote-unquote elixir, which had to have alcohol. But the company's owner was even more direct. When confronted with the 107 deaths his product caused, he said, and I quote, "I do not feel that there was any responsibility on our part." This is what happens in a world where profit is the only check on safety. That tragedy is the entire reason the FDA was given its core power to demand that a company prove its drug is safe before it hits the market. And it's the perfect lens for us to use when we look at the other alternatives people will propose. So let's take a look at these alternatives. When people say abolish the FDA, the argument for what should replace it actually comes in two flavors. The first is total abolition. The idea is to let the free market run, where the main check on bad products would simply be the threat of lawsuits. But we just saw the fatal flaw in that logic with the last example we talked about. The lawsuits and the fine came after 107 people were already dead. So a system based on lawsuits is reactive, not preventative. It guarantees the first sign of a problem is a trail of dead consumers, forcing the public to be unwilling guinea pigs in massive, uncontrolled experiment. Okay, so what about the second argument? This one sounds more reasonable. Replace the FDA with a private, non-government third party to certify that drugs are safe. This leads a critical, unavoidable question though. Who pays them? A private company needs revenue, and the only viable source of funding would be the very pharmaceutical companies that want their drugs approved. And if you think that sounds like a conflict of interest, you're right. In fact, it's one of the biggest criticisms of the current FDA is that a portion of its funding already comes from industry user fees. Critics argue this creates pressure on the agency and turns the industry into its own client. So, if a government agency with a public mandate and congressional oversight is already criticized for being too influenced by industry money, how could a purely private company with zero public accountability possibly be any better? Its main incentive wouldn't be public health. It would be keeping its paying customers happy. And that's not a system that protects people. It's a system that creates a race to the bottom for safety. So neither of these proposed solutions really hold up in my opinion. What brings us is to the real conclusion here. So where does this all leave us? The FDA's role in the opioid crisis was a catastrophic failure of judgment, and its handling of the pandemic created a massive and understandable distrust. But I'm not here to say that because something's run by the government, it's perfect. Far from it. It can be very slow, can be painful, it can have corruption. We know that. But the point is that a governmental entity has checks and balances, right? We, the public, have the power to demand reform and hold it accountable. A private company answers only to its shareholders and the people paying to keep the lights on. The call to abolish the FDA is a call for a dangerous kind of, we'll call it historical amnesia. It asks us to forget the world of poisoned elixirs and to believe that the system that produced them will somehow, this time, be different. And we know it won't be. So the choice isn't between a perfect FDA and a flawed one. The real choice is this: do we want a flawed public guardian that we, the people, have power to change? Or do we want a system run by private interests that we have no power at all? It's a choice between fighting for reform or returning to the Wild West where your safety is just an afterthought. As always, I respect your opinion no matter what it is, but I just want to give you some food for thought.